Sabina Perez had put out.
Right?
And you got that up there?
Yeah.
Somewhere around
I
here.
read it. I
Yeah,
read
so
it.
we
I
have
didn't read the whole letter.
Okay, we got her on the line. So if you want to just go over that, then I'll pop her up. 8:56. Also, we're going to get Ken Lujan from the SBA to let us know what's the way forward now. Are we just treading water with the funding for this Paycheck Protection Program drying up? Go ahead, Bree.
Okay, so Senator Sabina Perez, she wrote a letter over the weekend wanting more information from the acting banking and insurance commissioner, which is the director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. She wanted more information about the PPP program. 508 Guam businesses and nonprofit organizations were able to secure more than $102 million as part of this PPP program. But she had also received information that some local businesses had applied for this PPP, but and they turned in all the necessary documents and information, but apparently they were never submitted to the SBA. And so now we're in a situation where the PPP has ran out of funding.
Right. And so let's just get the senator on here. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Chris and Bree, Sabrina.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So yeah, I just wanted to have you heard from Daphne yet? And two, can you tell us more about these businesses that applied for these loans that were never submitted to SBA? That these businesses have reached out to you personally and told you?
So I've been keeping tabs on this from the very beginning, as far as when the Payment Protection Plan was first announced, and I don't have too many details, but I just have heard that some of these businesses were very diligent about submitting their applications even before the April 2nd. They submitted the application before the guidance change. I think in looking at some of the information that perhaps the S corporations and C corporations had more of an advantage because the guidance in applying for this was fairly simple, and when it came to sole proprietorships, their guidance changed midstream, and so they had to resubmit some of the information, and so because there's a huge influx of applications, it's somewhat kind of. And looking back at this, I'm wondering if that was one of the factors in creating the situation. I've had complaints coming from these small businesses saying that they submitted their applications early on in the process, and only to find out later that the funds have dried up. So that's a cause of concern. But I just wanted to find out what were the factors involved in this, and considering that this is a new program and the guidance changed.
Everyone to do go apply. So I mean the damn website was crashing. That's how many people were trying to apply for these.
That's right.
These loans, and it's unfortunate that I can't even imagine being a business, a small business, or a sole proprietor or whatever type of business that applies for this loan. It's pretty much life and death for a lot of these small businesses, and then to get the call that you jumped through all the hoops, you got all your paperwork, but man, your application, it fell under the table, or what were these businesses told, Senator? The dog ate their application, or what?
Just basically the funds dried up, and they weren't able to process quickly enough. That's just one of the things that I'm finding.
Right, but so if they
weren't able to submit,
if they applied and then they turned in their application to the banking place, and then
the banking place didn't turn over the application to the SBA.
Right, and then
that's what you're being told.
Yeah.
So that's some of the information that I'm getting. That it didn't appear to be a first come first basis. It was, and I believe some of that had to do with the type of corporation that it was, whether it was a sole proprietorship, a corporation type. It is concerning to me because I've even had employees reach out to me and are very concerned about their future. They were relying on this payment protection plan to keep them going through the pandemic. And so I think any information that we can get to help improve the situation. I understand there's potentially another round of funding. So, whatever that we can do at this time to speed up the process, I think that would be crucial.
So no response yet from Daphne?
Yeah, we sent out the letter yesterday, so I didn't expect a response.
Oh,
quite,
okay. Yeah.
Right.
Quite yet, yeah.
Right, but we kind of heard about the PPP running dry since Thursday, so.
Right. I think we were actually the
Last
ones
week.
that told the governor about it. Because it was in national media, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it made its
Right,
way over
yeah.
here, so. Yeah.
Right, and it wasn't clear. I mean, I believe in her statement. She said that there might still be money, but I guess it wasn't clear then at that point for me. But yeah, so we want to find out more information since the Treasury, they already published a report of the breakdown of, what was received from each of the territories and states, and a breakdown of how large the loans were.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to see how that applies to Guam as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard anything? You have oversight over Reventex, is it correct?
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
Have you heard anything in terms of what's new with the stimulus checks, or how soon? Are you getting any briefings from Daphne on that? Because I know we're still waiting for the IRS approval.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything yet. So I'm trying to set up a debrief. I reached out to the speaker to set up a debriefing for the senators regarding what's happening. So I've yet to hear back regarding that, the setting up of that meeting.
Senator, would you support something like a committee of the whole type setting where you guys get down there in all your gloves and your masks, and then you either through Zoom conference or whatever, get some of these people leading the COVID response, or but Daphne or any of these cast of characters who are leading the recovery front and just all the different fronts? Is that something that you guys, because I know that a couple of senators have been asking for this, is that something that you guys would like to see?
Absolutely. I definitely would like to see more transparency in all this information. I think, that would be great. I mean, if we can have our next session, I don't know when our next session is going to be, but that's something I would support and promote and advocate for.
I think it was Senator Teresa Law who had wrote to the speaker. You guys had a Zoom or something last week and had wrote and said, hey, can we put this up in committee of the whole? And
yes, that was right before the voting, and we did get a debriefing from the advisory committee.
Okay.
But yeah.
What was in the briefing? Because we haven't heard. That was that Thursday or Friday?
So that was right before we voted. So that was on Thursday, I believe.
Right. So what was the nature of that briefing? Did they tell you anything about a new trajectory or anything about the past models? What can you tell us?
No, they're still planning for the 20% reduction. So 3,000 potential deaths, and so they're planning for the peak,
right.
The expected peak, and so that means they're looking at I believe you said on your show earlier, they're looking at expanding facilities in the parking lot of GMH and other areas around Guam. I don't have all the information in front of me, but right. They're planning for that scenario.
Did they talk about recovery and this
opening up Guam?
I don't even, now that I recall, is anybody from the legislature on this recovery panel?
I didn't hear any senators' names.
Yeah.
I didn't. Haven't been briefed on that one. And so one of the things that came out of that call is that we were supposed to schedule regular briefings with the advisory panel. But as far as recovery, I think it's interesting that in your show earlier today, you're talking about mass testing, and the South Korean test being utilized by Saipan, and how that's not yet recognized by CDC. But I recall in some of the early conversations, I think before the quarantine, self and home isolation, that there were some doctors that were actually advocating for the use of testing kits, and from some of the anecdotal evidence, some of the healthcare providers are saying that the South Korean testing kits are more reliable than Chinese ones. And so in thinking about how they're not yet approved, perhaps we can utilize those kits for those that are deemed recovered, because I understand as a former medical technologist that you have to do some validation of any kind of test kits, And so perhaps I think I understand what the CDC is thinking, that if a test kit is not validated, then you would have to probably do double the work for a kit that's less reliable. And then I think that's perhaps one of the thinking that they have. This is a policy decision that they're going to abide and be compliant with the CDC, and that perhaps going with a different non-validated test kit can provide double the work.
Right.
And so I understand that aspect. But in regards to the South Korean kits, I think perhaps that could be utilized for recovery cases. We want to keep monitoring those that have been tested, and checked out to be okay. I think you bring up a good point. Is that what happens if there's a reinfection or reactivation of the COVID?
It looks kind of like unresolved, like the recovery science. When I was, God, I just Googled stuff, but the information's all out there, national media reports, and looking at it, it really seems. I know the CDC has their guidelines, and I'm not a doctor, but they kind of seem like a little on the easier side. So the impression I get, and I hope I'm wrong, is that we're just churning out these recoveries, and I don't know if there's enough follow-up with testing these people, because God knows we're limited on test kits. We're only testing you if your eyeball's falling out on a Tuesday during an eclipse.
Yeah. I think with this is a totally new situation. Everybody we're learning as we go along. I think that's the part of the problem, and we're learning from the other countries like Singapore and South Korea. What are they doing? And then now we're seeing they're having spikes that are happening in their countries. So we can't just relax yet. Even though we feel like we have it under control, I think especially because our community is a lot of our people in our community are at risk. I mean, we have higher rates of diabetes, heart problems. I think every precaution that we can take is I think advisable. And so.
Can we just ask you about tax refunds real quick? So I'd asked the governor a couple weeks ago about paying out tax refunds sooner than the 6-month timeline, and I kind of got my head bit off. So is that anything that we're thinking about, or are we just trying to shoot out these stimulus checks real quick? So because people are asking, people want to know. They filed. We're up to November, I think, and then the court order says that we have to pay them out within 6 months of filing. But when I asked the governor the question, she said, "Oh, we're current," but she meant we're current in complying with that court order. So people are wondering, they owed this money. Is there any chance they could get it inside of 6 months instead of having to wait? What is a conversation? I know that a few of your colleagues have made that ask.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the response by the governor, and I guess I can only speculate. But yeah, that is definitely something that I feel should be also prioritized in addition to getting the stimulus checks out. I think I understand that perhaps it's a capacity issue. We're not online. We don't have and so everything's done by hand, manual paper checks and everything. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and it's something that I brought up with my office and with DRT, consistently. So I think hopefully we're going to move in that direction. I feel it's a capacity issue at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. We're going to get Ken Lujan from SBA just to kind of, the well is dry. Want to get him on and find out what they're telling people. Are we still applying and all that stuff? So thank you so much, Senator.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.
Yeah, you got my number. Keep us in the loop.
All right,
Text me right after that next briefing, so I got a little, Don't worry, you won't be the only one. I cover our bases. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Okay, bye.
Take care.
What? You got to work the sources, Bree.
Hey, you're telling me? Okay.
Yeah, I know, right? You're telling me. 9/11. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. Ken Lujan from the SBA is coming up here. It's going to